everybody. So I just wanted to record this video because I'm getting a ton of questions in all of my Facebook groups about the pandemic or the PHE, the public health crisis ending, and everybody's worried that telehealth's about to end for the insurance companies. So I got this post. This summarizes what everybody's been saying. It says, okay, I'm kind of freaking out here. Both of the insurance companies I'm paneled with are ending telehealth only services in the fall. I purposefully don't have an office in order to keep my overhead low, but I still want to provide access to those who need mental health through the use of their insurance. What are you all seeing out there regarding insurance companies in this policy, and how are you planning on dealing with it? Okay, so I want to talk about this. First of all, these notices coming out are saying, when they're saying telehealth's ending, they're talking really about the telehealth waivers, the special circumstances for telehealth. That's what they're talking about. It does not mean that telehealth services are no longer going to be a thing with the insurance companies. So everybody's super nervous and worried about this, but when you're getting these notices, pay attention to what it's saying. It's probably saying more that the previous public health crisis telehealth standards are ending or something using that language. So read it real carefully. I think people are seeing like telehealth is ending and just everybody's just losing our minds about this, worried about it because we're, remote providers and we've got a ton of clients. So check that first. Make sure that that's actually what it's saying, because it's probably not. Before the public health crisis happened, I was an insurance-based telehealth provider, seeing insurance clients, traveling the world, doing all of that with no problem whatsoever. So United Behavioral Health, Cigna, they were really great about covering telehealth. Most of their plans cover telehealth without any problem. So it's not going to be an issue with them, I don't think. Both of those companies do want you to sign a telehealth attestation, basically saying that you're providing a HIPAA compliant service and that you're going to follow the guidelines of HIPAA when you're seeing your clients. That's basically what they're asking for. So for United Behavioral Health, you can go to Provider Express. That's the insurance portal for United Behavioral Health, and then navigate over to virtual visits. And then you'll see an attestation form there that you can sign. That's basically saying, yes, I'm a virtual provider, and yes, I'm going to follow these guidelines. So if you haven't done that yet, go do that. And then Cigna had a similar one before the pandemic, and I think they still do. I can't remember exactly where to find it, but basically if you just Google Cigna telehealth attestation, you'll be able to find it. The Evernorth platform, which is now Cigna, probably has it on there. I haven't taken the time to look for it, but you might be able to look there too. Okay, so I hope that helps. So those two, I don't think are going to have to worry about them at all. Now, Blue Cross Blue Shield and Aetna, they were really kind of hit or miss before the pandemic. Medicaid in the state of Virginia covered telehealth for me. Medicare was really a totally different thing. They said that you had to be a remote service center or whatever, but I actually did telehealth with Medicare before the pandemic. I billed with the modifier and everything, and it was never a problem. I got paid for telehealth. So let's talk about Blue Cross Blue Shield and Aetna. What happens with them? There's a couple of things. One, the policy may just say that it doesn't cover telehealth. So that's a thing. Or you might call up and they say, actually, you're required to use a third-party platform to see people through this policy via telehealth. And what that means is platforms like MD Live, Teladoc, Amwell, and there's a couple other smaller ones that pop up here and there, but that's basically what they mean by a third-party platform. So you're going to want to call and ask the insurance company specifically, do you require a third-party platform for me to see my clients via telehealth? With the pandemic, that was waived and you could just see them for the most part. Even if it wasn't written into the policy, there was a waiver that was allowing that. But now you have to call every single policy over the phone. Don't try to do it on Availity or Simple Practice has where you can verify benefits. You're not going to get the right information doing that. So I would recommend calling, which I know is a huge pain in the butt, and asking if for this specific policy for this client, is telehealth covered? If it is covered, am I required to use a third-party platform to see them for telehealth? So make sure you ask. If they say, no, you don't need a third party, document it, get the call reference number, make sure you keep track of that because you're going to need it if somebody comes back and says, oh, actually, you were supposed to be using MD Live this whole time. Okay. As far as the third party platforms go, a lot of people, and I did the same thing when I started out telehealth, rush to go credential with these third party platforms because you're worried, like, okay, I've got all these Blue Cross Blue Shield clients. If I have to use MD Live for all of them, I better go get credentialed with MD Live so I can still see them. But what you don't realize when you're doing that is that these platforms pay less. So if your contracted rate is 120 with Blue Cross Blue Shield, then you go credential with MD Live. If you see your clients through MD Live, you're only going to get paid $75 for a 90834. And they do only want you to do 90834s on those third-party platforms. Some of the other ones pay $55 for a 45-minute session. So I would not recommend credentialing with those platforms. That's just my personal preference. Whatever you want to do and whatever's right for you is totally fine. I rushed, I did it, and my pay basically got cut in half when I went all online with my insurance-based practice until I figured out I'm not going to do this anymore. Anyway, so with that being said, if you don't credential with the third-party platforms and you call and the policy says you have to see them that way, that's when you're going to have a conversation with your client about becoming a self-pay client, and you're going to have to talk to them about signing an insurance opt-out form. Basically, the insurance opt-out form is just saying that they're foregoing using their insurance because they understand that you as their provider cannot see them via telehealth through their policy because you're not credentialed with that third-party platform, basically is what the opt-out form is saying. So look into all that, pay attention to that, get a system in place around it, have the conversation with your clients. A lot of clients want to stay with their clinician. They'll say, okay, well, I guess I'll be self-paid then. I don't know what else to do. And you can't have them call and complain to their health insurance administrators, whether it's the insurance company or, their HR department. You can have them complain about that and ask to remove that third-party platform, just to do some advocacy. So another thing that I keep hearing is this, it's a rumor as far as I'm concerned, but it's got everybody sort of in a panic as well. I'll just read this question that I took from one of my groups. Somebody said others may continue telehealth, but they're mandating that if a client wants to be seen in person, we must do so. So just because the insurance company says that you must see a client in person if that's what they're requesting, that doesn't mean you have to do that. It means that you might not be able to see that client anymore, or that client might have to opt out of their insurance, but they can't mandate that you have an office to go to see this client. So a lot of people are freaking out about that. They're like, I don't even have an office. I'm hearing that, we have to see them in person. You might have to use that policy, but you don't have to as a clinician with your own boundaries and your own practice that doesn't want to have an in-person office. You don't have to. You just have to talk to the client about it and say, I'm sorry, I don't do in-office. And, either we cannot use your policy or I can refer you to a provider that will be in office and you can see them. So that's how you handle that. I personally haven't seen that written anywhere. And when I see this post come up, I say, well, where did you see this? And nobody can give it to me in writing. So I'm just calling that a rumor right now. But I did want to touch on it. Okay. So going back to the third-party platform piece that, has worried people. There are states that have passed a law that says you cannot mandate a third-party platform if you're an insurance carrier. So Virginia, the state I'm licensed in, is one of those states that passed that law. I can share that law with you if you'd like. Actually, I'll put it in the comments so you can go find it. But what I would recommend is that you check that out. You read the law and you go to cchpca.org. And right there, they've got all the telehealth policies for all the states. They've got things that already are in place. They've got things that are coming up in legislation right now that you can be advocating for. So I would encourage you to go over there, check out your state, and go from there. I would encourage you to go over to that website, look under your state, check out the state legislature, the laws that are happening now that are pending, that they're working for, and laws that have already been passed. Also, with that website, you can literally email them and say, hey, can you tell me any relevant policies in my state that would help me deal with these third-party platforms? That's how I found out about the one in Virginia. Nobody told me about that except for that website. So it's a good resource. I'd really recommend checking them out. And if you do find out that your state doesn't have a law like that, take the copy that I'm going to put in the comments about Virginia and share it with your legislatures, or go to your local NASW chapter or whatever your professional body's advocacy group is. Go to them and say, what are you guys doing to fight for this? This is going to mess up continuity of care with my clients if I can't continue to see them. And just really ask them to advocate for you. Also, you can write your legislators yourself and say, this is awful. This is going to cause a lot of problems and probably a bigger mental health crisis if clients can no longer see their clinicians anymore. And we're forced to panel with these lower paying companies. So if you do also find out that this law is in place and you call the insurance company and they say, yes, you are required to use MD Live, you could say, actually, there's a law that was passed in my state that says I'm not required. So can you check that again? And when you're asking about the third-party platforms, you can say, is it required or you recommend it? Like, you really want to ask them to differentiate between that, because they'll say you have to use it, but it's not necessarily required, especially in Virginia. Okay, so make sure you're checking all that stuff out. Talk with your legislators if you're not happy with what the laws look like in your state. So another thing that keeps coming up around the telehealth thing is this Medicare law that was passed. It's actually law that says any telehealth provider has to do an in-person, face-to-face meeting with their clients. I think it's at intake and every 6 months with their Medicare clients. So a lot of us that don't have offices and have been seeing clients for 2 years now via telehealth, we're not going to be able to do this in-person mandate. So it's a law right now. It's temporarily on hold as long as the public health crisis is still active. President Biden signed into law, it was the Consolidated Healthcare Act of 2022, I think that's what it's called, that basically says even after the public health crisis ends, which is scheduled to April 16th is when it's scheduled to end, they're going to extend all of that stuff another 151 days after that. So that's something that just happened recently. So right now, you're not going to have to worry about that mandate too much. So I just have been telling people, don't worry about it. Hopefully, all this legislation that's going on right now, there are a couple of different bills in the works that are trying to get rid of that mandate altogether. So hopefully by the time all of the public health crisis and all of that stuff ends, we're not even going to have to worry about that. So don't worry about it right now. People are already asking me, what do I do to get these clients off my caseload? Let's figure that out when it happens. But right now, you don't have to worry about it. Okay. And lastly, I just wanted to say, if you're really worried about telehealth and all of this ending, another option is a company like Headway. Those of you that know me probably know I'm a huge Headway fan. Headway, you can credential with them in your state. If they're in your state, you can credential with them. You can get on all the panels. You never have to even see a client through them if you don't want to. It's like a really good backup system because they have worked telehealth into the agreements with these insurance companies that they're contracted with. I'm looking at this as like a fail-safe, basically. If you are worried that Blue Cross Blue Shield is no longer going to allow telehealth, go credential with Headway too. You'll have that on the back burner in case you need to use another company that is going to advocate for telehealth and already have that in their contracts. So that's another option. I'll put a link under here too, so you can learn more about Headway if you want to sign up with them. They're only in 20 states right now. And I think a couple of the states are even on a wait list. But if they're not in your state, they do want you to get on their wait list because basically they're trying to get enough providers in each state that they can execute these really large group contracts. So the more people they have on the wait list, the more they can take to the insurance companies and say, look, wait, let us be in, Arkansas, please, because we have all these providers waiting to be credentialed here. So that's my 2 cents on this. I hope this helps. I know everybody's really worried about it. Please reach out if you have any questions. I'll try to help you the best I can. In my monthly membership, Bill Like a Boss, put the link to that too. We are on this. We're paying attention to this. We are even stuff around the new POS 10, the position 10 on the claim forms. We're paying attention to that. Medicare just put out a statement that said they do not want you to bill that code yet. Okay. So I know it's April and they've been saying use 10 in April, but do not use it yet for Medicare. They basically still want you to use 11 as the place of service and 95 as the modifier indicating that it's telehealth. If you use 02 or 10 for Medicare, they're going to pay you the facility rate, which is less than the individual rate. So don't use those codes. Okay. And I'll keep you up to date with that as well. All right. Well, I hope this has helped. Please reach out if you have any questions. Have a good day.